portion of the galaxy, and then you can take your time working your way in, because in effect you already won. So that is what the Dracos have done, or the Draconians have done. And they occupied the Earth first. They were the very first colonists on this planet. And in fact, it was their actions that changed the Earth from a water world to one that had inhabitable land masses. And this was close to 1 million years ago. Now, I understand that many of what has been given to you in science as far as carbon dating and fossil dating, dinosaurs being tens and hundreds of million years old, well, most of that is incorrect. If you understand the science of carbon dating, it is very faulty. And it depends on certain atmospheric conditions, and it also depends on the type of soil that the bones are buried in. And in fact, what may appear at some points to be tens of millions of years old may be in effect only a few thousand years old in actuality. So eventually this information will be given out to the public when a new revision of history is given to you towards the end of next year, officially. And so the Draco occupied this planet first. Human refugees from the Lyrian star system came here many thousands of years later. And there were many clashes between the two because reptilian and mammalian life forms are not conducive to living together. They need different environment, they need different type of food, they need different type of culture, and they don't mix. So there was always conflict. And at one point it was decided that there would be some type of effort to stop the fighting and to merge the two sides together. And this is what the Bible talks about in the chapter Genesis. Now, understand the Bible is not to be taken literally. It is an allegory. It is a coded history that needs to be deciphered. All of the stories that you read in there may not necessarily have happened the way they're written. It is there as a code. And if you go into the original Aramaic language, in which it was not written in Hebrew, but it was written in Aramaic. There is a code that then can be deciphered, and we've only been able to decipher it in the last few years through the use of computer programming. And in fact, right in the code in the old Aramaic and ancient Hebrew in there, it says can only be deciphered through use of computer, where computer is clearly written in the code. Now, who wrote that 4,000 years ago? So it was obviously not written by people as you know it. They decided to make a third race of people, one that would be considered native to the earth. And the deal was that they would mix reptilian with human genetics to create a new race. Now, the reptilians were androgynous. That means there was male and female within the same body. There was not a separation of sexes. And so in order to create this third race, the reptilians only agreed to it if a reptilian body was used first and human genetics were added to it. And this is why in the Bible it says, "Let us make man in our image." It's plural. And in the Old Testament, all references to God are plural, as if it were more than one. And that's why it says, "Let us make man in our image." And the story of Eve being created from the rib of Adam is an allegorical story of an androgynous reptilian body being separated into male and female components. That is the allegorical or symbolical story of that particular chapter. And scientifically, you can prove this. Any of you who are in the medical profession, all you have to do is look at how a human fetus gestates in the womb. And you will see that it starts out reptilian-like, and then as it develops, it becomes more human-like in the second and third trimester. And so this is what actually is occurring. The genetics are opening up in the sequences in which they were formated. It was reptilian first, human genetics were added to that. So during the gestation period, that is what formulates. That's just plain as day. Now, what happened was, and this is almost comical when you think about it, although it's really not funny, that when each side donated the genetics to create this new race, they programmed their genetics to be dominant over the other, so that there's always conflict within your own body. That's why your brain is split into left and right hemispheres. That's why you have a reptilian brain and a mammalian brain. That's why you have a reptilian lymphatic system, and you have also skin that wrinkles and peels, as well as other mammalian factors. You are all hybrids of reptilian and human genetics. That's what makes civilization on this planet so unique, because that doesn't exist anywhere else in this galaxy. And that's why there is so much interest in this planet from elsewhere, not only within this physical universe, but also in alternate universes. Whether or not you accept it, there's not just one universe. There are many different universes, all occupying the same structure, if you will. It's kind of like having a radio, and no matter where you tune the frequencies, different stations play. So it's kind of like the different stations within the radio of God mind, if you want to look at it that way. Yes?
I have a question then. The embryos of animals, like dogs, mammalian animals, like dogs, cats, don't they have also reptilians?
Yes, many of them do.
Do they have right and left hemispheres?
Many of them do, and that's because all life form on this planet was either brought here or created here under those special circumstances. There is no natural life to this planet. And that's another point, and that is when a creature or when a being is native to its environment, the environment is benevolent to it. Life isn't a struggle, otherwise life could not have existed or been developed. Life on this planet is alien to it. This planet is innately hostile to life. If left on its own, no life would have formed here. It's either too cold or too hot, too watery, too dry, too rocky. There's always a reason why life would not exist on its own on this world. This planet is actually an alien world to you. Nobody came from here. So in effect, you are aliens on this planet, and you are aliens of your own mind. And this, again, is a unique situation in this particular part of the galaxy. I want to jump ahead a few thousand years, and that is the two civilizations that occupied this planet at the time, the reptilian and the human, were in what you would term Lemurian or Atlantean. That is the common terms that have been used since then. And there was war between the two. And in fact, I have a translation here of ancient Indian Vedas, or texts that are at least 100,000 years old and have been translated, and they describe the war between Lemuria and Atlantis. They also describe the use of weapons that, through the description, could only have been nuclear weapons or devices, as they talk about mushroom clouds and light that obliterates physical reality. They also talk about lances or flying spheres, things that you would call UFOs or flying aircraft or even missiles. All of this has been translated from the ancient Veda. And they also talk about ships called Vimana or Astra, which are vehicles that can fly into the air and even outside of the atmosphere. This was written 100,000 years ago. And you should also know that the ancient Indian civilization, or the Hindu civilization, is actually an offshoot or a derivation or descendancy of the original Lemurian colonies in what is now the Pacific. Now, what happened? The Atlanteans, or those refugees from Lyrae, actually had devices that could harness the geomagnetic forces of the Earth and pull it or force it into a specific location. And when they did this, when it was too powerful, it could break the upper